Hello, and welcome to Counseling Ethics Lecture 17. My name is Dr. Amber Hughes. In this lecture, I want to talk about counselor burnout. Counseling is stressful and can take its toll on practitioners. The relationship itself is stressful. There is no give and take like in other relationships, only giving on the counselor's part. When you first get into this field, I think it's hard to understand how physically exhausting it can be. Physically exhausting, not just mentally. It really does drain you. I remember being so tired after my first days at internship. I go and I was working with a really tough population, and I would just listen to these horrible stories all day long. And at the end of the day, I had a 30 to 45 minute commute. I would cry all the way home most days, and I would just be exhausted by the time I got home. And so when you work with a challenging population, it can be even more exhausting. It's also hard because it can kind of feel isolating. If you live with people who don't work in the field, they certainly they support you and they love you, but they don't understand what you're going through. You can't talk about a lot of things because of confidentiality, right? And they may not understand how exhausting and how draining it can be when you're just sitting around listening to people all day long, right? Or sitting around and talking to people all day long. You can also start to doubt the effectiveness of counseling, which can be stressful itself. You can question what you're doing and why you're doing it. I've had that experience many times. Again, especially when you're working with a challenging population, you don't see progress very quickly, if at all. I remember, again, working with kids at the alternative school. And I remember one day in particular when our SRO, our student resource officer, came to my office, and I guess he was probably having a bad day himself, and he said, "Why are we even bothering? We're just sending them back home to the place where they developed all these problems to begin with," right? And so I got it, because we both felt like we did so much work and we put so much effort into these kids, and then we would send it back home to these lives that weren't great. And it can be stressful. And that stress, whenever you don't alleviate it, whenever you don't, do anything to take care of yourself, it can lead to burnout. Burnout is physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion brought on by involvement over prolonged periods with emotionally demanding situations and people. It would be rare for a counselor to never experience a frustrating week, a difficult client, emotional overload, or occasional symptoms of burnout. You're going to have that. Counselors who function healthily are able to put these experiences into perspective and move on. That's why we talk about self-care so much in our profession, and that's why we focus so much on the wellness model, because it's not just for our clients, it's for us too. We have to make sure that we're healthy so that we don't get to the point where that burnout leads to impairment. Impaired counselors are unable to transcend periods of stress. Their therapeutic skills have diminished or deteriorated to the point that they are unable to perform their responsibilities appropriately. You may have met impaired counselors. You may have unfortunately experienced them yourself. Or you may have heard horror stories about impaired counselors who just, who don't care, who aren't doing their jobs right, who are just not very effective. That's what we don't want to happen. We don't want to get to the point where we are impaired because of burnout. And so, again, it's important that you're able to take care of yourself to manage the stress that counselors feel. There are some factors that can contribute to burnout and impairment more than others. So first we have environmental factors. These are things that you may be experiencing as a counselor in your life. So if you experience a death in the family, a divorce, a violent crime, or other trauma yourself, if you have a severe physical illness or other personal loss, those things are going to contribute to burnout because you're not able to take care of yourself, and the stress that you feel on the job is just adding to the stress that you're getting from your home life. Pre-existing conditions can also contribute to burnout. If you've not processed your own stuff, if you've not worked through your own issues, if you've not worked through your own mental health issues in particular, this can be this can be a challenge, and it can lead to burnout. Now, you might have certain things that maybe you've not processed, right? I'm thinking of one student I had who hadn't worked through her own issues with religion, and so she had a really hard time with a client in particular, because his issue was about religion. So he was talking about religion a lot, and she was kind of fighting that. She just didn't want to talk about it with him. She didn't feel like it was important. That was because she hadn't processed her own stuff. Okay. You're going to have that, right? Where you have those one or two things that you haven't worked through. And she was fine though. She was taking care of it in supervision. She was going through the process. Okay. So that's normal. Those pre-existing type of conditions are normal. If you have pre-existing conditions, however, that are, overwhelming or that are big enough that any additional stress is going to kind of push you over the edge, then it becomes a problem. So I'm thinking maybe like addiction. Okay, if you're struggling with addiction yourself, and maybe you're sober, but you're only a short time into your recovery, it may be a problem for you to take on a heavy caseload if you've not figured out how to balance a whole lot of stress in your life yet with your recovery. Okay, so those type of pre-existing conditions can certainly lead to burnout and impairment. And that's why we spend so much time on you. Okay, so again, this is why we spend so much time on you through these programs, talking about you and asking you to process and reflect and whatnot, because it's important. It's just as important that you learn the skills and the theories as it is that you do your own work. And finally, there are certain kinds of clients and client problems that can contribute to the development of distress, burnout, and impairment in counselors. For example, if you have personal issues with the personalities of some clients and the actual problem they bring to counseling. So if it's something that's related to your own values and belief systems and you haven't worked it out. And then you have just clients that are challenging in and of themselves. So again, like the population I was working with was a high-risk population of adolescents, lots of behavior problems, lots of gang activity. They were in the system, in the foster care system, lots of trauma, and it was just a hard population because, again, the stories that I was listening to every day from every single individual were just horrific. And so it was really hard for me to process a lot of that trauma. Vicariously, that's another thing we can experience, is vicarious trauma. So again, if you have a certain clientele that's just difficult, where they have a lot of the problems of their own, and you don't have a lot of downtime or don't have a lot of ability to put it in perspective, it can be challenging. Not to say it can't be done. People do it every day. It's just something you have to be aware of when you're working with hard populations. There we go. Here are some signs of burnout, and I got it from the Theranest.com. So anxiety, and this might be, if you already have anxiety issues, this might be increased levels of anxiety. Apathy, so getting to a point where you just don't care, feeling drained or tired. I was reading one article from someone who experienced burnout, and she was talking about how she just couldn't get out of bed every day. She kept hitting the snooze button. She was dreading going to work. So those kinds of feelings, when previously you were really excited and passionate about what you do, can indicate burnout. Loss of appetite, mental exhaustion, mild depression, persistent or recurring illness. I think we see this a lot. Honestly, as a counseling educator, I see this a lot in students, where when you get just so tired and you've taken on so much that you just keep getting sick, right? So lots of stress can lead to these long illnesses, and it might not even be anything other than a cold, but maybe you have that cold that you can't get rid of. Okay, those can be signs of stress and burnout. Persistent physical exhaustion, sleeplessness. All of those things can indicate burnout. I was at conference presentation from a colleague of mine back in October, and he did his dissertation on burnout, and he was talking about humor. Humor is something that interests me in terms of teaching and counseling. It's something I use a lot. And so I just thought this was super interesting. But he was talking about that, oh gosh, I forget what they called it. It's that dark humor, right? That dark humor that you might see and you might use a lot once you get into the profession, like joking about someone dying. That's horrible, right? Horrible, but it's also a coping mechanism. When my brother was deep in his addiction, I remember my parents and me, we would joke about these horrible things all the time and then laugh hysterically. It was not funny. These jokes were not funny, but we were using humor to cope with something that was really, really hard. And so you can do that. You see that a lot in the counseling profession. But he was talking about like a shift in that humor, like that shift from, hey, this is kind of dark and we're being silly, and we're laughing at something that's inappropriate, to we're joking about things that we shouldn't, right? So dark humor is kind of pushing a line or towing a line anyway, where you're joking about things, but whenever it's kind of in a general sense, he was talking about how it is kind of a coping mechanism, right? Where you use that dark humor as a coping mechanism. But I think he was referring to like when you joke specifically about clients, that's indicating apathy. Okay. So there's that dark humor that you might joke about in general, with like maybe your clientele, versus specific humor about specific clients where you're like, hey, maybe you're crossing the line here. Okay. So unfortunately with burnout, it's like competence. It's kind of a personal thing. You gotta judge yourself. So there's no clear lines on any of these. These are all things to be aware of. And whenever you see or hear that humor, that dark humor in the workplace, it might be something to pay attention to, making sure that people aren't crossing a line. And finally, the Code of Ethics does speak to impairment. So standard C2G, counselors are alert to signs of impairment resulting from their own physical, mental, and emotional problems. If they determine they are impaired, they must stop offering professional services to clients when such impairment is likely to harm a client or others. If counselors believe their colleagues or supervisors may be harming their clients, they must intervene as appropriate. And counselors are supposed to monitor themselves. Again, this is like competence, where this is something that we kind of keep track of ourselves, although it's hard if you're in the middle of it, right? You may not necessarily see these signs of impairment. And this is where things like supervision can really come into play. Or even, maybe if you're past the point of having regular supervision, maybe making sure that you have some colleagues that you meet with regularly so that you can touch base with each other and make sure that you're not getting to a point where the stress you feel on the job is leading to burnout and impairment. One of the articles I was reading about burnout, the counselor talked about how she realized she was burnt out and that it was impairing her job. And so she took a couple weeks off, and this was kind of extreme. She went to a Buddhist retreat in Colorado to kind of recharge herself. But then, and this is what I thought was cool, she kind of developed, or her and her colleagues developed a group where they met, I don't know how often, but I'm guessing, maybe once or twice a month, to kind of recharge themselves and to make sure that they were taking care of their own needs as well as their clients' needs. So I think that's helpful, to get together with a group of your peers, with your colleagues, and kind of make sure that you're focusing on that wellness and focusing on yourselves, so that you don't get to a point where you're burnt out and impaired.